Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a couple named Jelani and Fatima. Even though they did not have much, they cared for one another very deeply and lived happily together. The young couple was overjoyed when they welcomed their first daughter named Neka, but sadly the child was born with white eyes. The baby was born blind, and many people in the village quickly assumed that the child would only bring bad luck and misfortune to the couple. They were taunted by the villagers, and many people wanted the child to be banished, or worse even thrown into the river as a sacrifice to appease the gods of the land. Persuaded by the negative thoughts and sayings of the community, Jelani turned his back on his wife and daughter. He hated the mere sight of his daughter and blamed her for the shame he was going through. One day, while Jelani was eating, the baby started to cry. He was mad and angrily tossed the food away out of spite and scolded his wife for the baby's cries. "Could you please silence that thing you call a child? I can't even eat in peace," he shouted, leaving his wife looking very sad. "My husband, why do you speak about our precious daughter in that vile manner?" she asked curiously as tears filled her dark brown eyes. Jelani didn't want the tears of his wife to weaken him, and instead he looked away, refusing to meet her gaze. Filled with confusion and desperation, Jelani wanted a second opinion about the birth of their daughter, so he opted to seek an older witch doctor who was found in the next village. He was famous and known for performing miracles that shocked the villagers to their core. But in return for those miracles he wanted 10 cows and 2 goats as a token of appreciation. Jelani sold the little land he had and few grains he had saved from his previous harvest. After successfully obtaining the sacrificial animals, Jelani went to visit the witch doctor with his wife Fatima. The young couple left their daughter in the care of her grandmother Chimuka. It was only a few days later when Chimuka received terrible news that morning. A messenger came to sound the horn at her house, alerting everyone that there was a funeral. Chimuka was devastated when she finally heard that her son and daughter-in-law had passed away in a terrible accident. Their remains were going to be brought to the village in 2 days' time, and to make matters worse, her granddaughter was only 9 months old. In 2 days' time, the bodies were brought to the village, and they were soon buried. Chimuka took it upon herself to raise her granddaughter like her own. After the deaths of her parents, Neka was called a witch by many people, and her grandmother always kept her away from the public eye. 17 years later, Neka grew up into a very beautiful woman, and she looked just like her late mother. The striking resemblance always warmed her grandmother's heart. "Grandmother, you're getting old, and I'm here to help you. Why won't you let me assist you?" It was true, Chimuka wasn't getting any younger. She wasn't strong enough to go to the river every day. She couldn't even go out to buy food at the market very often, and would only allow Neka to do the house chores. "It's not that I don't want you to go. As your grandmother, it's my duty to protect you from this wicked world." She sighed deeply. "It's the least I can do for your parents." Tweeza felt like crying whenever her parents were mentioned. "How are you going to protect me when you're not here? I won't learn anything about this world if you don't let me explore." Chimuka felt speechless and conflicted. Deep down she wanted to make her granddaughter the happiest girl in the land. Yet again she wanted to protect her from the cruel villagers who hated her mere existence since birth. Chimuka didn't want to do it, but she felt like she did not have much of a choice this time. "All right, I have heard you, my child. Just this once, I will let you leave this hut for a while." Neka was instantly filled with happiness as she searched around the hut trying to touch her grandmother. Chimuka held Neka's hands and gently placed them on her cheeks as tears rolled down her face. "I want you to be back before dark, my dear, and please take your cane with you and promise me that you won't talk to any strangers." Neka nodded quietly. "I will do anything you want, grandmother, and thank you for letting me go out." Chimuka wasn't too happy about her decision. She only allowed Neka to go to the river bank to fetch water. Later in the afternoon, Neka went to the river with the help of her grandmother, who showed her the way and made sure that she memorized the path. Neka was left alone at the river bank, and she was filled with happiness when her hands touched the water. Her grandmother had left ages ago, but she took a step back when she felt the water moving. "Grandmother, did you come back?" she called innocently, searching around in the darkness. A silent breeze passed by, and Neka was filled with dread. "Do not be afraid, Neka. I will not bring any harm to you because I am here to help you." "Help me with what?" There was a silent pause. "Don't you wish that you could see?" She felt it in her heart. It was the one thing she always longed for, and a strange man was going to help her on a silver platter. It was too good to be true. "Who are you?" Neca demanded angrily. "My name is Gaho, and I am your guardian angel, sent by the gods of this land to protect you." He tells Neca that someone put a curse on her when she was in her mother's womb. But in order to help her regain her sight, Neca must keep his existence and identity a secret. Neca instantly agrees, and from that day forth she always went to the river to talk to Gaho. People would always make fun of her and taunt her, but deep down she knew that she was going to put all the villagers to shame. "Why have you been going to the river bank so very often? We have plenty of water in the hut." Her grandmother was starting to get suspicious. Neca hated lying to her grandmother, and she finally mastered the courage to tell her the truth. "I've been speaking to a man called Gaho. He was sent by the gods, and he is going to help me regain my sight." Chimuka was furious and forbade Neca from going out ever again. No matter how much her granddaughter pleaded desperately, Chimuka didn't want to change her mind. Neca loved her grandmother, but she didn't want to miss this opportunity. In the dawn of the night, Neca snuck out of the hut and went to the river. She knew that her disappearance would make her grandmother worry about her, but she did it in the hopes of finally breaking the curse that surrounded her. With the help of Gaho, she was guided to the vast mystical forest that was filled with evil things. They were to journey to the center of the earth. Neca couldn't help but hear the whispers of people she didn't know calling her. The forest was playing tricks on her, and she fell deeper into the trap. "Neca, don't listen to the voices," Gaho shouted, trying to help her snap out of the trance. The voices led her to a flowing stream, and Neca began aimlessly walking into the water until she disappeared. Neca was struggling to break free from the evil spirits that kept her captive. She felt the water filling her lungs and her heart giving out. She was about to take her last breath when a strong force pulled out of the water just in time. Gaho was devastated as he kept trying to wake up Neca by performing mouth-to-mouth on her. "Neca, don't give up, you need to fight." He was becoming more desperate. "Don't let the darkness take you. Please find the strength to fight back." Just when all hope was about to be lost, Neca opened her white eyes with a gasp. "Am I still alive?" she whispered softly, unable to believe that her heart was still pounding frantically in her chest. Gaho smiled brightly at her even if she could not see him. He felt relieved that Neca was still alive. If anything bad had happened to her, he wouldn't have been able to forgive himself. "I thank the gods of our land for bringing you back." Neca knew that his words meant something more, but she didn't dare to pray. Gaho helps Neca to her feet, and she is stunned to finally feel his presence physically. She has only heard his voice since the day they met at the river bank. "You are real," she finally whispered after a few minutes of feeling the soft texture of his firm hand. He grinned at her, wishing that she could see the goofy smile playing on his lips. "Of course, did you think that I was a ghost or something?" he taunted, making fun of her. Neca attempted to smack his shoulder but missed, which only made him laugh. "Come on, we still have a long way to go." Neca nodded quietly as they both went deeper into the forest, searching for the solution to her blindness. "Why did you tell me that you were my guardian angel at the river bank?" Neca asked curiously. She still couldn't believe that all this while Gaho had been a real person trying to portray a supernatural being. "I didn't know why I pretended to be a ghost, but it was the only way I could help you. And I haven't been able to get you off my mind since the day I saw you." Neca wanted to ask him what he meant, but he cut her off when he placed his hand on her shoulder. "What is it, Gaho?" Her own voice echoed in the void of the empty land. "We have arrived, Neca." She could sense the tension that had filled the atmosphere. He let go of her hand, and she felt terrified. "You have to take this step alone." Neca dropped her cane to the ground and began walking forward with no sense of direction. The thorns on the ground pricked her bare feet, but she didn't mind the pain. She slumped on her knees, searching for something on the ground. Her instincts had told her to search for some sort of object, but it was a way of fate talking to her. After endlessly searching, Neca finally came across a hard object that felt like a round pot. She immediately knew that it was a calabash, and something was tied around it. It felt like a cloth material. Neca took a deep breath and held the calabash with trembling hands, trying to regain her balance. She stood up slowly and smashed it to the ground when she recalled the death of her parents and the suffering her grandmother had to go through just to raise her. The calabash shattered into pieces and something in the form of smoke came out of it. It sounded like an explosion, and Neca covered her eyes when she felt something leaving her body. She fell to the ground, and when she opened her eyes she saw green vegetation around her and a man standing in front of her. "Neka, are you all right?" She reached out, touching his cheek gently, and tears rolled down her face. "Gaho, is this really you?" He smiled and wrapped his arms around her. "Let's go home, your grandmother must be worried about you," he muttered quietly. Gaho offered her his hand and she smiled at him and grasped it firmly. "How did you know that this was the solution?" she finally asked. It was finally time to tell her the truth. "My father is the witch doctor your parents went to see before the accident that claimed their lives." Neka couldn't believe what she was hearing. "I was sent by the gods of our land to help you, and the person who put that curse on you will suffer the consequences." Justice was done by the gods, and finally Neka had been given what rightfully belonged to her. She saw the hope that existed beyond her eyes.